5 steps that lead to the scapegoat child's suffering and healing. Why does a scapegoat child think so poorly of themselves? Why do adult scapegoat survivors continue to think poorly of themselves? And how can I understand the traumas faced by the scapegoat child, the adaptations made, and the path to heal? In today's video, I lay out 5 steps that explain how and why the scapegoat child suffers and later heals. The scapegoat child's pursuit of what makes them happy led to really bad outcomes. The child had to adapt to these outcomes by abandoning this pursuit, and this led to suffering. In short, the scapegoat survivor heals by pursuing what makes them happy to discover that nothing bad happens anymore. The suffering and the healing happens in important relationships. Well, my name is Jay Reed, and I'm a licensed psychotherapist in California, and I specialize in recovery from narcissistic abuse. In my professional and personal experience, I've worked to identify the fundamentals to the process of recovery. And this has led me to what I call the 3 pillars of recovery. Pillar number 1 is making sense of what happened so that you grow to know it wasn't your fault. Pillar number 2 is gaining distance from narcissistic abusers and closeness with safe people. And pillar number 3 is living in defiance of the narcissist rules. I think it's also essential to find and participate in communities of people who can get, validate, and support you on this path. I've seen and experienced large improvements in quality of life after applying these pillars. Today's video falls under pillar number 1, making sense of what happened. And if you were a scapegoat survivor of a narcissistic parent or partner, then I encourage you to check out my free ebook on the topic. It's called Surviving Narcissistic Abuse as a Scapegoat, and it goes into other important aspects of what it's like to be in the shoes of the scapegoat child or partner of the narcissistic abuser. From self-limiting beliefs about yourself that you must adopt to survive, to why the narcissistic personality is so geared to put those closest to them down. I think this ebook can help you realize how none of this abuse was your fault, but rather the product of the narcissist's psychological and emotional problems. And you can find the link to the book in the description box below. And lastly, I'm excited to announce that you can now save 30 to 40% off of my 2 courses from recovering from narcissistic abuse, because I've partnered with a company called TrueMed that helps people use their FSA or HSA spending accounts towards these courses. Unfortunately, these FSAs and HSAs are only available in the US for now. But to take advantage, you can just click on the link that's in the checkout page for either course. Okay, the 5 steps that lead to the scapegoat child suffering and healing. Step number 1, safety means my parent is able and willing to care for me. A child has to know that their parent can take care of themselves. This knowledge allows the child to focus on what makes themselves happy without fear that their parent is going to fall apart, feel abandoned, get anxious, or become depressed. The child knows their parent is able to take care of them because the parent can take care of themselves. A child also has to know that their parent is willing to care for them. This means that the parent wants to care for the child. The child is not an obligation nor an adversary. Their parent expects the child to have needs and expects themselves to meet them. The child feels safe when the parent is able and willing to care for them. They can take initiative in their lives without worry about the impact on the parent. They know that they are not alone in the world. They can reach out for a parent who is available and ready to help when needed. Step number 2, danger means my parent is unable or unwilling to care for me. The child feels endangered when their parent is not able and willing to care for them. The scapegoat child of a narcissistic parent is surrounded by such danger. Their parent is too consumed with their own emotional frailties to be able to care for the child. And the way the parent manages these frailties leads them to be unwilling to care for the scapegoat child. In this kind of situation, the scapegoat child faces the danger of being nobody to no one. They do not have a parent who recognizes nor values them for the person they are. Nor does their parent show them that they value the child's love for them. Both create massive amounts of fear, stress, confusion, and shame in the child. So the scapegoat child has to create some logic that saves them from having no hope of escaping this danger. They work to understand what makes their parent more or less able and willing to care for them. Their guiding premise is that their parent is still someone capable of being good or less bad to them. The scapegoat child just has to adjust themselves to unlock this in the parent, or so the thinking goes. Step number 3, if I pursue safety, love and belonging, self-esteem, or self-actualization, then I'm in danger. A narcissistic parent is more able and willing to care for their scapegoat child when the child seems worse off than the parent. They are less able and willing when the child seems better off. And here is why. This parent feels a core sense of worthlessness they cannot stand, so they psychologically relocate this worthlessness to the child. Then they deprive, devalue, and control that child to think and feel about themselves as worthless, i.e., to be worse off than the parent. With the scapegoat child as the identified worthless one, the narcissistic parent feels protected from their own sense of worthlessness. And this fragile arrangement only works when the child identifies as worthless. Otherwise, the parent will have no one to offload these painful feelings into. The scapegoat child senses that they are being who their parent needs them to be when they are worse off than the parent. This translates to the parent being relatively more able and willing to care for the child. A surefire way to feel and be worse off is for the child to sacrifice their developmental needs. Life without the possibility of psychological growth feels stifling and flat. It easily leads the scapegoat child to feel and seem worse off than the narcissistic parent. Specifically, the scapegoat child sacrifices their needs for safety, love and belonging, self-esteem, and self-actualization. And I didn't pick these needs out of a hat. They're actually the needs identified by the psychologist Abraham Maslow in the 1940s as essential for healthy development. So you can see them here. They are arranged in a hierarchy such that the first level must be met before the second level can be met, and so on. And of course, we wouldn't be here if our physiological needs hadn't been met in some way or another, which then leave the following 4 needs that the scapegoat child must sacrifice pursuit of in order to keep their narcissistic parent able and willing to care for them. So safety can refer to your physical, economic, and health well-being. Love and belonging involves trusting others and being trusted by them, feeling accepted and respected. Self-esteem is knowing you are effective and competent in the world. And self-actualization means putting your original and creative footprint on the world. Meeting these needs would lead to the scapegoat child seeming and feeling better off. They would then be at odds with how the narcissistic parent must see and treat them in order to be as able and willing to care for the child as they can. Step number 4, I need to convince myself not to pursue these needs to stay safe. Well, we're all born with a strong motivation and energy to pursue these developmental needs. Getting these needs met allows us to become the people we were meant to be. This motivation endangers the scapegoat child, however. The child must convince themselves to deny this motivation in order to stay safe. The scapegoat child overcomes their motivation to develop by adopting beliefs that they are defective and undeserving. Beliefs give us reliable ways of adapting to the reality we find ourselves in. They allow us to make our environments work and preserve ourselves. They hold great internal sway because of how important they are to knowing who we are and what to expect in life. A child who believes they are defective and undeserving is convinced not to pursue their developmental needs. They don't seek safety because they are undeserving of protection, and they don't seek love and belonging because they are defective and therefore unacceptable to others. They don't seek self-esteem because they are defective and therefore undeserving of success. And finally, they don't seek self-actualization because they are, again, supposedly too defective to achieve it. Although these beliefs leave the child in a bleak state, they preserve whatever ability and willingness the narcissistic parent has to take care for them. These beliefs allow the child to overcome their motivation to develop. They can remain worse off than the parent and therefore safer. Step number 5, I will search for other relationships where it's safe to pursue these needs. Well, hope is not lost for the scapegoat child and later the survivor. Their motivation to get their needs met for safety, love and belonging, self-esteem, and self-actualization never goes away. It just gets stored in their unconscious until it is safe to pursue them. The scapegoat survivor knows they can resume pursuit of these needs when the right relational conditions present themselves. And the survivor has a systematic and often unconscious way of assessing whether those conditions are present. They see if they have to believe they are defective and undeserving for the other to be able and willing to care about them. And they can do this in a few ways. Present themselves as defective and undeserving to see if this other person appears gratified. Pursue their needs for safety, love and belonging, self-esteem, and self-actualization to see if the other person gets offended and or hostile. And this is a lot less, I think, frequent, but can still be in play, treating the other as though they are the worthless ones to see if this other person accepts this treatment the way the scapegoat survivor once had to. When the scapegoat survivor finds someone who is not gratified by them being worse off, nor envious at them being better off, and they don't accept being treated the way the scapegoat survivor was treated, then the scapegoat survivor can conclude that their beliefs of being defective and undeserving are no longer necessary to maintain the other's ability and willingness to care about them. The ideas presented here are based upon control mastery theory. If you'd like to learn more about this approach to understanding how people cope with and heal from narcissistic abuse, then I encourage you to check out my 6-part video series on the topic. The link to that playlist will be in the comments section below. Well, I hope you found today's video useful in sort of the overview of how the scapegoat child comes to believe that they are defective and undeserving and the adaptive role that plays, along with how they grow to heal from that. And it's sort of part of a similar process. Well, with that, I want to thank you for tuning in today and for your continued support of this channel and the resources around it. And just again, thank you for the comments each week in the comments section to the videos and the support offered one another, and what the contributions of people's own stories into the comments, I think just goes such a long way towards I think people understanding that they're not the only ones who felt the ways similar to the ones discussed in the video or outlined in the comments section. And I think that's an extremely valuable gift, really, I think, to give one another. Not just here, but there's plenty of ways that can occur in the community of scapegoat survivors supporting one another. Well, okay, I guess from Brizo back there and myself, thanks, and I look forward to posting again next Friday. Take care.